7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
All right, welcome everybody. You Get the Horn Show. Tad and Jeff here. How you doing tonight, bro?
Hey, doing good, man. Looking forward to the show and looking forward to Sunday. Ready to get going.
The Super Bowl is nearly upon us, and we will probably not talk all that much about it tonight.
No, we're mostly going to focus on the Pro Bowl. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that amazing feat.
That flag football, you gotta be into that.
I watched this thing, and my mom even says to me, she's like, "I tried to watch that Pro Bowl." She tells me today, I don't understand what was going on. I was like, "Mom, I don't think anyone understands what's going on." So I tried to watch it, and I was like, "All right, let me just see." You know, it was like, so it's a 50-yard field. They get one first down, and then they have to, go for it. There's no field goals, no nothing. So Tucker was there. I'm just trying to remember. I don't know who the other kicker was for the NFC, but they were playing beforehand, doing some sort of like tic-tac-toe thing.
I saw that. Yeah, kick-tac-toe is what the NFL was calling it for the Pro Bowl.
So, so I'm watching it. My 8-year-old wanted to watch it. I was like, whatever, nothing else on. It's Sunday, right? So the score was like 12-9 before the game even started. He's like, "What? Why is it like that, buddy?" I don't even know how I can possibly tell you why the score is whatever it was at that point. I'm pretty sure it was 12-9 or something crazy. So I was like, I don't know. And then in the middle, they stopped and started like unloading weights off of like this thing. Like, it was like, I don't even know what it was, a few 1,000 pounds of weight. The offensive linemen were moving, and then they had to like drag this big thing across the line. And then they were doing like some agility thing where they had to run like through this thing and then lift up this thing, crawl under it, and then hit a button. And then the other guys had to go and jump and knock a football out of like a target. And then at the end, like, yeah, they were like doing this like sled thing. I was like, nobody can possibly be enjoying this. Like, even the players have to be like, this is awful.
Well, I can tell you now, I mean, I did not watch a single second. Not 1 second of the actual Pro Bowl activities. I have not seen a second of Pro Bowl activity replays. Nothing.
Well, you missed out,
They have somehow managed to completely negate the importance and relevance of the Pro Bowl. Like, to the point, and just for the record, this started before all the stupid games and everything else. The Pro Bowl used to mean something. Like, this is actually a topic I can get a little bit pissed about. The Pro Bowl used to mean something. It meant something when you were named to the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
And then, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, it started being where guys didn't care about going to the Pro Bowl, or they didn't want to, or they wanted to go on vacation when the season was over. They didn't want to be messing with this stuff. So one guy wouldn't go, and then another guy was rehabbing from injuries and he wouldn't go. And then another guy wasn't interested and he didn't care about it. And another guy was actually going to play in the Super Bowl, and so he couldn't make it. So you get down to like the 7th best guy, the 7th best right tackle in the AFC ends up in the Pro Bowl. And they make it seem like it's a big deal. This guy got named to the Pro Bowl. And it's kind of like, he's not good. Like, this is, he got named to the Pro Bowl because everyone else said no. This would be like if at your high school dance, if they wanted you to be on the homecoming court, but it was because the 30 guys that they asked before you they couldn't go to the dance, and then you're like, sure, I'll be homecoming king. It's like, how good do you feel about it? Why does it matter? It used to mean something. I don't understand what changed.
The quarterbacks for the NFC for the Pro Bowl were Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith, and Baker Mayfield. And then
best and brightest.
And then it was Tua. And honestly, I'm going to forget the third guy, but the other guy was Gardner Minshew.
Yes, I remember Gardner Minshew. Lamar didn't go. Like, Lamar Jackson just wasn't interested in going to the Pro Bowl. Said, no, not going. And that's the way it is for a lot of guys. And think how many guys had to not go before Gardner Minshew said yes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like that's a
Gardner's
lot of
like,
guys before you get down to Gardner Minshew. He didn't even
Yeah.
play the whole season.
Right. Yeah.
He didn't play the whole season for a team that did not make the playoffs.
Yeah. I saw the hockey was on too, and they were showing some of the skill stuff. And like one of the guys literally was doing like the skills thing as slow as he humanly possibly could. It was almost embarrassing. At least with like the hockey, like they kind of do this like little like playoff bracket. Like there's, I don't know, maybe 6 teams, and then you break it down and they play like whatever it is. I don't know, two periods or something. It's 3-on-3. So it's kind of cool, just because it's all that open ice. It's 3-on-3, it's a lot easier to score, but they weren't interested either. Like, and that was like $1 million that was up for grabs on that. Like, but split, of course, you're splitting it, and I don't know how you make that thing ever relevant again.
Guys aren't going to risk injury. They're not going to risk injury.
And
we know that. They shouldn't.
No, and I completely get that. I understand it, but you got to do something to make it a little bit more interesting. Like this is like, this is the thing where like the best of the best are selected to go up against each other. Like I feel like at some point, like you said, it used to mean something. Like guys were trying hard. I think the last time we saw anything, and they showed highlights of it because it was like the anniversary of it, was
where you're going.
Sean Taylor lighting up the punter. And, just completely decleating this guy. Like, I believe that was then they were like, yeah, we probably should do something different here. Now they're not even in pads. They're in flags. It's just it's the weirdest thing. But again, like, if you're, a fan of, like, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, like, you don't want to see those guys go out there and tear something, in a meaningless game. I just, I don't, but it was packed. The stadium was absolutely packed. Now, I don't know if the tickets were $1 free or what they were, but they had that entire stadium packed out, which was just wild to me. But again, I don't know what the sales were on something like that, if they were just giving away tickets or what the situation was. But yeah, very, very meaningless and just awful. I mean, it just was not fun at all. It was just
stupid.
Guys out there playing on a 50-yard field, it was just very weird and still not trying hard,
Right. And I mean, at least in baseball, the All-Star game still has some amount of meaning and everything. I think the problem is that football is an inherently physical game, and guys are not going to risk getting injured. And if that's going to be the case, then eliminate the game. Just get rid of the game altogether.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of like, okay, it's a skills competition. Do you want to see your quarterback throw his shoulder out, trying to see who can throw the ball the furthest? I mean, it's like there's so many little things that you can do to minimize this, and it's just it's gotten dumb. And honestly, what's really funny is they have the Pro Bowl that nobody cares about, and being awarded to the Pro Bowl doesn't matter. Except you do have guys with incentives in their contract on whether or not they make the Pro Bowl and stuff. Which again. Yeah. Great. So you mean to tell me every guy in front of me said no, and then now magically I'm a Pro Bowler? Like, okay, awesome. Gardner Minshew probably just made $1 million because they were like, surely he'll never be a Pro Bowler. Well, you can if no one else wants to go. And yet the real thing, the meaningful thing, and the way harder thing to accomplish is being named an All-Pro. And there's nothing about that. There's no significance to that. They have not figured out a way to monetize being named All-Pro. And that's the thing that's so interesting. The Pro Bowl gets all the hype, and it's the least important. The All-Pro award is far harder to achieve, and that means nothing. Like, you don't hear about it publicly very much.
Well, no, and the Pro Bowl game, to get elected to the Pro Bowl, it's usually just a fan vote, anyways. They have so much say in that, but they're never going to get rid of it, and because they probably still pulled 15 million people who watched the game.
Yeah. And a lot of kids. And that's what they want. They want
so
the kids. That's why they're doing the Nickelodeon stuff and all of that type of thing.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, how would you love to be on the Super Bowl broadcast with SpongeBob the SquarePants,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But, it's going to work, and that's how they're going to keep bringing in new fans. So, yeah, it was quite a show for sure, but we got a big show coming up on Sunday here, so maybe we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny, right? So, like, anyone who hasn't already turned us off because we spent the first 10 minutes talking about the Pro Bowl, and also the fact that nobody cares at all about the Pro Bowl, and yet we talked about it for 10 minutes. We have the Super Bowl coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But honestly, like, I really don't want to talk a ton about the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about it. We'll give our take on it. But I feel like, honestly, you can go anywhere and hear Super Bowl talk, and you're probably not going to hear anything new. And there's real business that's being conducted in the NFL still, and coaching hires being made, and coordinators being lined up, and, you know, all of these things. And, you know, and the hype is now around the Super Bowl that, I don't know, doesn't seem that exciting. Now, again, we're two guys with helmets behind us that neither one of those teams happen to be in the Super Bowl. But it does seem like the general sentiment is that it is not a overly, you know, exciting or interesting Super Bowl. If you're fans of those teams, though, it's exciting to you, and we will discuss it a little bit, but we're going to spend a little bit of time on that, and then we're going to talk about some of the business going on in the NFL and some of the things that we actually do have some bigger opinions on. So, but yeah, man, Super Bowl, Chiefs, Niners. I mean, should be a good game. Like, I fully anticipate it being a pretty good game. So this, it feels to me like it's lining up to be a Chiefs victory. Just in general, that's just the vibe I get. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, and you're probably not wrong. However, I think if there's ever a time where talent on every level can win out against a star quarterback and coach, which has been the theme pretty much since the playoffs started with us. Best coach, best quarterback. Yeah. It would be the Niners. I just think top to bottom, you know, not taking anything away from that Chiefs defense, because that Chiefs defense is severely underrated. Yeah. They are a force, that defense. I think there's too much talent on the Niners side to beat the Chiefs, you know, to lose. So I think I'll probably, I think this, again, I'm fully expecting, you know, a 3-point game, 6-point game, something like that. Like, I don't think this is going to be a double-digit blowout by any means. That would probably shock me more if someone wins by 10 plus points. I think that would probably shock me more. And it could be close, and then, you know, a late turnover that gets returned for a touchdown that the guy could take a knee, but it's the Super Bowl. Let me run it back, right?
Right.
So, you know, very well, it's going to come down to probably the last drive again. And that's the best I think you could possibly hope for this game, because outside of that, yeah, I mean, I listened to Radio Row today on a lot of sports talk, and I'm going to tell you, the talk was very little about the game, which is surprising in some aspect, that this is the Super Bowl, and the interviews that they're doing, there's very little talk about the game going on. It's all about the business that's happening, all the coaching hires, all the DC, OC hires that are taking place. Very, very little about the game. Because what else is there to say, right? I mean, how many times can we say, how great is Patrick Mahomes? How many times can we say, can Brock Purdy overcome this or overcome that? Is he a system quarterback? Is he not a system quarterback? So it's just good for these guys. I mean, good for these teams, because there's not a lot of, like, you know, hype or pressure or anything like that that's being put on them, you know? Yeah. You know, it's just, they were expected to be here. And I'm pretty sure this was our picks for at the beginning of the year. And I'm pretty sure it just went exactly the way we said it was going to go. I mean, Chiefs 49ers. I mean, it's just, it was just two best teams. Now, of course, the Chiefs had a harder road to get there, I believe. You know, what were they, 11-6 this year? I mean, it was probably the worst 11-6 that they've ever looked like. Yeah. But that's just a testament to who they are and you know, the quarterback that they have. So, yeah, I think I'm going to take the Niners in a 3-point game.
Nice. Yeah, look, I mean, it's not hard, right? Niners should win. I mean, that's what it boils down to. The Niners should beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They just probably won't, but they should. Like, it feels too much like it's swinging back the other way for the Chiefs. Like, I'm not saying that I want them to win. And honestly, I don't necessarily really care who wins the Super Bowl. It I don't really have anything riding on it either way. It doesn't mean a lot to me. I'm obviously going to watch it and enjoy it, but I don't really care that much about who specifically wins it. But I just feel like all the momentum right now is in the Chiefs' corner, and they have had a harder road for sure. I mean, no argument there. And so, until further notice, I'm not going to be betting against Patrick Mahomes. I haven't done it yet, and and that was even going into the Baltimore game. It was very much the Ravens should win. The Ravens are the better team, but I don't trust anybody going against Patrick Mahomes. Like that's the bottom line. Is it's the same old, and same with the Bills, right? Bills should have won that game,
100%,
but they didn't. So I just think that's going to be what it is, and I anticipate it being a good game. I do think the Niners have way more talent than the Chiefs have, just across the board, but I don't know, man. Andy Reid.
It's hard, yeah. Like who bets against the Chiefs? I just, if
the one that makes money.
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. Now, let me ask you this, and this I'm sure is something that's been brought up, but I don't know that we've ever brought it up. Should Patrick Mahomes win this, where would you rank him among all-time quarterbacks? Which is odd to say because this is his 8th year, 7th year,
something like that.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, just last week we talked about him versus Brady over their first 6 years.
Yeah. So all right, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is,
So, I mean, I think the hard part is if it's just pure quarterback play. I mean, if he wins another Super Bowl now and what he's done, I mean, he would be the best that we've ever seen. Like, let me say it like this. If Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl this year, he would be the best quarterback we've ever seen for this period of time. That doesn't negate Brady winning 7 Super Bowls and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, we've talked about it so many times. There is a big difference between being the winningest and being the best.
Yep.
And, I mean, there's a lot of argument to say Dan Marino was the best quarterback ever. But a lot of people will never even consider that because he didn't win a Super Bowl. He only went to one and he didn't win. And that's, I don't happen to look at it that way, but I understand a lot of people would. And you can look at other guys and say, and this is the reason that for me, that argument doesn't hold water. Is because how many guys, just because they won a Super Bowl, do you say that they're automatically one of the best ever?
Right.
You don't say that about Mark Rippon. You don't say that about Trent Dilfer. There's lots of guys that have won Super Bowls that you're not saying. And if Brock Purdy wins this year, I'm pretty confident people are not going to be saying Brock Purdy is one of the best ever just because now he has a quarterback win. Or, I'm sorry, a Super Bowl win. Whereas Marino didn't have a Super Bowl win, but that means now he can't be one of the best ever. Or he can be, but it's like top 20, top 15, top 10 if you really, love Miami, but that's it. I just don't really understand that aspect of it. To me, in terms of someone playing the quarterback position over the last 5 to 6 years, we have not really seen anyone do it as well as Patrick Mahomes has been doing it.
It's amazing. Yeah. And he's not even 30 years old yet. So you assume there's a lot of football left in him. Now it becomes a point where does he want to play till he's 40? I mean, does he want to be Brady? Does he want to play that long? Does he want to break that record? That's a tall task for sure. You got to wonder what the motivation will be after that. I mean, we've looked at his stats through and through. I mean, and he already is ranked up there, tops in just about every category. And it's just, it's insane. So listen, I think it's going to be a good game. Like I said, I'll be more shocked if it's a blowout of any kind. And it could happen. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen. We've seen it, I just think with these two teams and the way they're coached that no lead is going to be too big for either team to come back from. The moment's not going to be too big for either one. Now it could be too big for Purdy. I mean, we saw that against Baltimore, and this is what gives me hesitation to pick them is just because of what we've seen him do in big game situations. Now, played well against the Lions. I mean, that was, you can't get much bigger than that, I don't suppose. but it's not against the top tier defense. It's not against the top tier offense. It's a little bit different. So I just look back and see what Baltimore did to him and just how awful he looked. And, it's kind of like, well, can the Chiefs defense do that? I don't know why they can't. I mean, they were right there neck and neck all year with the Ravens as the, as the best team, best defense in football. So I'll still take the Niners, but that's not a strong conviction. I'll say that much.
It's just hard for me to imagine Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes sitting on the sideline watching somebody else win a Super Bowl. Like, we might see it. It's just hard to imagine.
Sure is.
Two of the best minds in the NFL. Like, and I think Shanahan is comparable, but he doesn't have that other piece that's on Mahomes' level. And that's for me, that's where the difference is. Again, talent-wise, it's all Niners. And really, this
Absolutely.
is a game on paper. Probably shouldn't even be that close. This should be a dominant Niners win if you were only looking at it on paper.
Yep.
But yeah, I will probably give the edge to the Chiefs here, probably 5 to 8 point win, something like that. I think they'll win it.
All right. I
Wouldn't
like
mind
it.
being wrong, but we'll see.
Sure. Yeah, definitely not. Yeah. I mean, not that I want the Niners to get another championship.
Right.
But,
Yeah. Well, why don't we talk a
maybe,
little bit about the business of football?
Yeah.
We got moves happening, man. Things have happened. I guess let's start with the fact that the Washington Commanders have now officially named Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn as their head coach and Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator. So what are your initial thoughts on this?
Well, my initial thought when it all came down was like, did you really need to hire Bob Myers? Did you really need to go all outside of the box to land on Dan Quinn? After, some, I guess, initial shock wore off, and I started seeing what other players were saying about Quinn and what, other, teams and reporters, things like that were saying about how he is such a great leader and, he's a good fit for a team like this that's in a rebuild. I wasn't as shocked, I guess, about it. It really feels like a Ron Rivera hire. I mean, it just feels like you went through all of these coaching carousels. And I said this on last week's show, and I know I got a little pushback from a live person that was watching us when we were live, saying, no, it's going to be Ben Johnson. And I was like, it very well could be. Yeah. However, it just was taking way too long for me. And I was like, something has just got to be up with this. So, and I wasn't wrong. I will say that much. Now, I expected this to be Mike McDonald.
Right. I remember you were pretty strong on the Mike McDonald to Washington thing.
He made the most sense to me. I mean, it's a new coach. It's a new hire. It's someone that's fresh, but they circle back to Dan Quinn. So yeah, very interesting.
It feels like, I mean, first of all, Dan Quinn's a safe hire. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Dan Quinn's a very safe bet, safe hire, solid coach when he was in Atlanta, so I don't think there's any, real takeaway there. He's a solid coach in Atlanta. He's a safe hire. It's the thing that's interesting to me is supposedly the brass at Washington found out on their way to Detroit that 100%. Ben Johnson was not going to be interested in the role. They still went to interview Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions. You don't hear anything about how that meeting went whatsoever. They go, They meet him, and then they just come back and they name Dan Quinn the head coach. So it was kind of like, okay, did you kind of already know what you wanted to know about Quinn and you were hoping to find someone better? And when, it just didn't work out that way, when Aaron Glenn maybe didn't impress you enough or something, it was just kind of like, okay. Because the other report, I don't know if you saw this, I think it was our buddy Adam Schefter that put this out. that Mike McDonald obviously was in play for the Washington job, but that Seattle outbid Washington for him. I don't know if that's true. I kind of would find that hard to believe because you got all the money there. Like, if he's your guy, unless you felt like it was close. If it was a thing of like, okay, well, look, if we can get him for the same price as Dan Quinn, then obviously we want to go with him. But outside of that, we feel good about Dan and we feel good about the price point and we just run with that. I mean, coaches don't count against the salary cap. A lot of people don't think about that stuff. You can pay a coach whatever the heck you want to pay him. So when it comes down to the idea of being able to land a coach, money, if it's a guy you're convinced is who you want, should never be the thing that stops you from getting.
Exactly. Now, I will say, I feel like, and I said it when the hire came out in our little group text, that McDonald played this one perfectly, man, because he was able to get that 6th year. And that's not something a lot of coaches, especially new coaches, are getting. We've seen it in the past. You know, we saw Shanahan get the 6-year deal,
right,
but most of the time it's not a 6 years that they're getting. So whatever it was, you know, it does seem like that very well possibly could be it. That maybe they just possibly did not want to push it to 6 years. And then I don't know, you know, the problem is they never really say what, you know, the amount is, but I'm going to assume it's probably in that 10 million range. That would be my guess. I could be completely way off base, but I feel like it could probably be somewhere in that range. And maybe they did just outbid them. It is, but you saw Ben Johnson's asking price was 15. Now I've got a theory on Ben Johnson and the reason he passed up these opportunities. Because this is now 2nd year in a row. Now he's starting to look a little bit like Josh McDaniels, a little bit. So he's kind of coming off a little bit like, whoa, are we really going to keep wasting our time on a guy like this? But there's possibly a few coaching hires next year that might be coming up. Andy Reid, there's a lot of speculation that Reid is not going to, be around much longer. There's some even speculation that this might be his last game. I think he'll probably stick it out again, especially if they win. I could see him sticking it out, trying to go back to back. And then Buffalo. If they don't start winning up there in Buffalo, they're only going to keep him around for so long. And what a great opportunity. I think he looked at next year and saw the opportunities and say, ooh, I have an opportunity. Now, it's a gamble, of course.
Yeah.
But I've got an opportunity to possibly coach Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I might just hang around. And I'm sure the Lions, as they did last year, might throw a few extra dollars his way, give him a elevated title or whatever, and keep him around. I don't think it was a situation where like, oh, I really want to run it back with the Detroit Lions. It's a fun organization, but we talked about last week, I don't know if there's any team that's going to have a harder hill to climb next year than the Detroit Lions. I mean, this is like a, 1 year you kind of catch everyone off, by surprise. Now everyone's ready for you. And we saw the evolution, as we've gone along. So, I mean, they're a great team. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I don't think like, oh, I really want to stick around and be an offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions when I have an opportunity to go out. So let me throw an absurd amount of money. If they bite, great, I'll take it. If they were going to give him $15 million a year for 5 years or 6 years, yeah, I'll take it. Why not? Yeah. But, he saw the offensive coordinator starting to go, guys that he could bring in, the defensive guys, and it might have just been a situation like, man, if I just hang on for one more year, one of these big jobs may come open. Who knows? Patriots could flounder under Mayo, and I don't know that they're setting him up necessarily for success up there.
Right.
And maybe it's a situation where he just saw that and was like, man, I think I'm just going to have better opportunities next year. And Washington with a complete and total rebuild. Look, you may get Caleb Williams, you may get Drake May or something like that, but this entire team needs work. Like this isn't like a 2-year quick turnaround. Like this is something they're going to have to rebuild from the ground up. So
I think the Washington thing is so interesting now with Cliff Kingsbury because that Caleb Williams connection with Cliff Kingsbury and stuff, it really does make you wonder, like, could Washington make that move to bring in a Caleb Williams, pair him with Cliff Kingsbury, And man, I mean, that would be interesting. That's a way to jump off right from the start under new
Yeah.
ownership, everything, new head coach, and you get and honestly, probably no better way for a Cliff Kingsbury to get himself back in the NFL at a significant level, because what happened in Arizona was embarrassing. Right? And it's
Now,
not
he
only
did get
his
them to the
fault.
playoffs once. He did get them to the playoff 1 year. So I mean, you know,
Yeah.
they kind of again were on that trajectory, and then it just all fell apart. So.
Yeah, and it's not all his fault, but it's still, and it's not just some people. I guarantee you already, people in the comments were saying, "Well, Kyler got injured." No, we're talking before. We're talking before the Kyler injury. We're talking about don't play video games. We got to put it in your contract. Don't, like all of these things. We don't know what to do with DeAndre Hopkins. We don't know how to use him. Not, like we don't know who's going to play quarterback. And then we're playing this guy, and then we're trading this guy away. And Dobbs is here, and now we're going to ship him to Minnesota. We got like they were relevant for a moment, and then it all disappeared. And Kingsbury did not seem to be a guy who had a real strong grip on the reins there in Arizona. There's no chance that Cliff Kingsbury would be getting a head coaching job anytime soon. Honestly, I didn't really think he'd be getting an offensive coordinator job in the NFL right now.
No.
This has to only be because of Caleb Williams. And so if he is coming in, whether Washington's able to get Caleb Williams or not, that had to be a big part of the idea here. And if you're Kingsbury, again, it makes sense, because it's kind of like, okay, man, if I can do something, maybe give me another year or two, and I might be right back in these head coaching circles again. So yeah, it's very possible.
I thought it made sense too for Quinn. Now he wouldn't have been anyone that he probably wouldn't have been on my top 5 of offensive coordinators to try and bring in. I thought Kubiak would have made a ton of sense there. Honestly, I thought Bieniemy would make a ton of sense to bring him back. But it does make sense that if, Kingsbury is this offensive guru that everyone kind of thinks he is, or he made himself out to be, it makes sense to bring him in, because again, yeah, you're right. This isn't going to be like, hey, 1 year, let's see, look at me and what I've done.
Right.
It's still way too soon for teams to forget about what you did in Arizona. So this is probably going to be a 2 or 3 year stint. And if he's good, that's even better for Washington. So he's good, and he's going to be sticking around because the stench of Arizona hasn't aired out yet. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. Again, wouldn't have been my 5th pick, but I mean, at that point you're hiring a coach late, which, again, they were eliminated day one. It just feels like, they waited around to hire the GM. That took a couple of weeks. And then, this coaching thing they did, and they didn't even bring in, there were some teams that were bringing in 11, 12, 13 people. It just seems like they hitched that wagon to Ben Johnson. Everyone thought it was going to be him. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. And now they've backtracked and hired Dan Quinn. So, very odd. Is there any coach that has just completely dropped the ball on himself than Eric Bieniemy?
I don't know what to say about Eric Bieniemy, because I don't understand what's going on here. Like, you and I were talking before the show. If Eric Bieniemy is like some sort of a jerk, right? Just an impossible guy to work with. He had to have had all the time in the world to fix that when he was in Kansas City, not getting, opportunities, and clearly did enough to be able to get the job in Washington. And now here we are, where Washington's already told Bieniemy, you're not coming back. And again, he's finding this out late in the process, where most of these teams are already set up. And it's just, it's all strange to me. I just don't understand. I feel like Eric Bieniemy is one of the great enigmas of the NFL. Maybe all time in NFL history, because I just don't understand what happens with him.
No, he hitched his wagon to Washington. I mean, I heard today, someone, just kind of give the analogy, like he hopped on a sinking ship. Like he had to have known this was going to be Ron Rivera's last year, unless by some miracle they made it to the playoffs and then at least looked good in their wild card game. Not just backing into the playoffs. And so he knew it. Now, did he expect that maybe, he wasn't going to make it. Rivera wasn't going to make it through the year. So, and we talked about it. There was plenty of opportunity to let Rivera go. Why Josh Harris didn't? I guess they just didn't want to do that. My first act as new owner as I'm firing the coach midseason, but he completely deserved to be fired. It just seemed like it was just let him have his swan song, let him go out, let's just do right by him because he weathered the Dan Snyder era and, but there was an opportunity that Bieniemy could have coached the last 5-6 games of that year and seen what he had. And I have to believe that's what Bieniemy thought. Now, don't get me wrong. Bieniemy was not a good offensive coordinator this year.
Yeah.
He had the Sam Howell throwing the ball more than any quarterback in the NFL.
No sense.
There was, it was, probably 10-1 pass to run ratio.
And you have decent running backs. Like there's no reason that Washington can't run the ball some.
And Washington had built that offensive line. Now it wasn't a good offensive line, but they had brought those guys in to be run linemen. These were linemen that were designed for the run. And now you've got Sam Howell doing dropbacks, 40 times a game. He ends up leading the league and passes and also interceptions. Well, that's probably what you expect. It just wasn't really any adjustment. Now we'll say when they brought in, just for that wee little bit of time, they would bring in the backup, whose name's going to slip my mind.
Jacoby Brissett.
That offense looked manageable, but Brissett is a veteran and he knows how to run an offense. He's been around the league long enough. So, but it was such a small sample size that you couldn't say like, oh yeah, had Brissett started all year, this offense would have looked completely different. Well, maybe, but then that's also on your coach to adjust the game plan. And from what we understand, he had full control of that team, of that offense. What you have to assume he did because Rivera wanted to run the ball a 2-to-1 ratio. Minimally, he wanted to run the ball. And we didn't come anywhere close to that. So don't get me wrong, he was not good. There was a few games where you're like, oh yeah, that looks good. But for the most part, he was not good. And now here we are, what do we have left? One offensive coordinator position left, and that's in Seattle. If he doesn't get that Seattle job, he's now coming on a staff, and I could see a scenario where he comes to Pittsburgh as maybe an assistant head coach or passing game coordinator or something like that. I could see that. And I wouldn't be opposed to it. I could see something like that, but it's not going to be, he's not going to be up for a head coaching job anytime soon after this. He now has to rebuild himself again.
Yep.
And by this point, he's going to be 60. And then it's like, well, is he too old?
Right.
Now that's going to be the knock on him. So, man, I for someone who was such a hot offensive coordinator, guaranteed to get a job. I mean, we thought 2 years ago this guy was going to be a head coach. And now here we are. He's unemployed and he's not even a coordinator anywhere. And if he doesn't get that Seattle job, which I haven't heard much about it, I don't know why McDonald will bring him in to be offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get that job.
They have any connection.
Right. So if he doesn't get that job, I don't know where he's going this year. He's going to be an assistant head coach somewhere. Or he's going to be a coordinator, a lower level coordinator, passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach, something to that effect. And just a complete fall from grace for this guy. And it's just, like you said, I don't understand it. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, let's, before we close out the episode, let's spend the last couple minutes here talking about who didn't get jobs. Bieniemy we just talked about. But what about a Bill Belichick? What about a Mike Vrabel? What about a Pete Carroll? Some big names did not get jobs. And it was really interesting. I don't know if you heard this or not. Diana Rossini was talking earlier today in an interview and said one of these things, and she's great. It has nothing to do with her, what I'm about to say, but said this thing that seems so crazy, which is that she heard from a general manager at the Pro Bowl that, with Vrabel, okay, there's some question on whether or not he necessarily fit in to certain teams' plans and stuff, but also just that he's a big guy, physically big, and that can be intimidating to people in an organization who are the decision makers, and that could actually really hurt his chances of being able to get jobs because people in the building are intimidated by the fact that he's a big guy. He's like 6'4", 6'5", something like.
Sure.
It's not like Shaq walking into a room or something like that. You know,
Right.
like I don't get. It's a football organization. I mean, some guys in there have to be, you know, pretty good sized guys. But regardless, that is at least what one general manager told Diana Rossini, that Mike Vrabel's physical size might be intimidating to teams, and that's why he wouldn't be getting offers.
Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that he doesn't get a job because he's too big?
Yeah.
Not fat. He's not Andy Reid. He's just too physically fit.
Yeah.
And people are intimidated by that. No, I would say I would have if that's the case, like that's just absolutely ludicrous, asinine. I mean, just go down the verbiage, the list of verbs that we can use for that situation. I would guess it would have to be with him wanting to have team control. Like he didn't get along with what was it, Rand Carthon?
Rand Carthon was the new GM and John Robinson before that.
Yeah. So he just didn't get along with him, butted head with him. You know, he just wants more say and, you know, personnel and things like that. That I could maybe understand and get, you know, especially if you're a new GM, like, no, I'm not going to bring a coach in here that wants to run the show. Like that's my job, you know? So that would make more sense to me than, he's just got too much muscle.
Yeah.
Like he's just, because what if he's just tall and skinny? Then you're not intimidated, but because he's tall,
no trouble
with muscles, it's too much for you. Yeah,
it's scary to think that could be an NFL team's decision-making process, you know, but at the same time, I mean, I guess, you know, these are big decisions and these are big roles. It's not like it used to be. There was a time when really teams just wanted the best coach. And now that coach position, that head coach, is really the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys who are the best at it, for the most part, are guys who are not just X's and O's guys. In fact, you're seeing fewer and fewer X's and O's guys really being a huge part of the head coaching thing. It's really more about the systems that they bring in the offense and the defense. And they're there to just like be the face of the franchise, to keep the mood of the team and the motivation and those types of things, to have a good relationship with the press and the fans, and just be consistent with things. And it's way less about somebody's kind of identity. You know, it's not like a Tom Landry coaching the Cowboys, you know, or something like that, or Don Shula with the Dolphins. It's not like that anymore. And people look at maybe a Mike Vrabel and they just don't see CEO. And again, whether that's right or wrong is up for, you know, discussion. Obviously, we think it's wrong, but in general, if that's what people feel, it's, you know, like, how do you talk them out of that? And I think that's obviously hurt Belichick. Belichick, we know, is all about control, and a lot of teams are not going to hand over control because they don't trust it. And then they also have to look at it and say, if I give you all the control and then I have to get rid of you, now I have to start completely from scratch because I also don't have a general manager. So I've lost a GM and a head coach and probably my coordinators all at one time. And it's a complete reset for my entire organization. It makes it tough.
Yeah. I mean, he could be one of those, like, you know, in-season hires or something like that, where you bring him in if a team's struggling. But I don't know. If he doesn't get a job this year, is anyone going to now be clamoring for him next year? I mean,
I would think he has a defensive coordinator future, like Vrabel, and then possibly getting back to being a head coach. But I think Vrabel could go in as a defensive coordinator. I don't think Belichick will take a defensive coordinator job.
No, I don't either. No, I mean, we talked about it. Like, I don't even think he'll take a coaching hire at this point just to be a strictly a coach. But again, you know, what is Belichick? He's 70, if I'm not mistaken.
I think.
70, 71. Yeah. I mean, next year he's going to be a year older. So, and a year out more out of the loop and out of the system. I mean, if he doesn't get a job this year, which obviously he's not, I don't see anyone clamoring for him next year. You know, I mean, I don't know. I can't even think of a team off the top of my head. Indianapolis gonna like,
Right.
they stink, and they're gonna fire their coach. Philadelphia, maybe they're gonna get sick of their coach and be like, all right, let's bring in Bill, which
Hey.
would make a lot of sense there.
Yeah.
But I think a Vrabel would make even more sense there. But
Yep.
it's. I don't know. I mean, I think Vrabel, just giving his age, is probably going to have a shot quicker than Bill Belichick. We're saying this about what we would consider maybe the greatest coach of all time,
Yeah.
and now he's not getting a job, and people are clamoring for him to be like on TV and doing like the sports breakdown. Could you like, dude, what is interesting about anything this guy has to say?
Yeah. I don't see it. I don't understand. He would have to be very, very different on TV. And I don't even, you don't get the vibe that he's a guy that wants to be on TV.
No, that's it.
That just doesn't seem like him at all.
Yeah. I mean, it would be cool if like he just completely flipped the script and he's like this charismatic and funny guy, and still has all the X's and O's. Because you've seen like some of the interviews that he would do, and whenever a reporter would ask him like an X's and O question, like how good he was at answering that.
He'll go
like
10-20 minutes on just that.
Like how much life is in his eyes answering that question.
Yep.
But you're not gonna have that kind of time. When you're doing TV stuff, like it's all fluff and it's all like quick and in and out. Someone mentioned, and I told you I was listening to some sports talk stuff on the Radio Row, and they had a guy on who does he's like a producer, or he works with Omaha Productions.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what do I want to see? And I was like, this is great. I want to see Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, and Nick Saban all doing a Manning cast type stuff, all from their homes, and just have those three sitting around talking about the football game that's going on. I was like, now that would be fun. That would be interesting. Be cool. That I would love to see and hear them critique this stuff. So, not going to happen, but that's about it.
Well, and that's another guy that's not going to have a job, Pete Carroll. I mean, you look at the sheer number of people that are out there that aren't getting jobs this year. That then, next year, we talked about earlier, Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator. The landscape could look a lot different next year on the coaching jobs that are open, but also the coaches that are looking to take those jobs too, because then it's a wide open field. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be very, very fascinating to see what happens, because every year there's a handful, and then there's going to be some that we just don't know what to expect. Like sooner or later, the seat is going to get hot. I have to think sooner or later on a John Harbaugh, on a Mike Tomlin, on probably not this year because of what the Packers did. I was going to say a Matt LaFleur, but the Packers had a nice little run this year, and Jordan Love looks like it's working out. Robert Saleh with the Jets, like Brian Daboll with the Giants. Yeah, there are these jobs that are going to start popping up. And
look, here's a name too that it's probably going to pop up, and depending on what they do, might have a Caleb Williams, and that's Chicago Bears and Matt Eberflus.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why they brought him back with all these coaches available is beyond me. Oh. But all right, what happens if they go 4-12 or 4-13 again, or 5-12, whatever? They don't make the playoffs again this year. They're not going to bring him back for another year, are they? I mean, so that's going to be another job that's going to be open. And then presumably they're either going to have Justin Fields, which you think you could still do something with, or you're going to have a Caleb Williams or whoever, they decide is the top quarterback in the draft. So that's another one. So it's going to be a lot more positions that pop open as well. So,
yeah, I mean, honestly, like if you're the Bears, why did you not? Why not Mike Vrabel? Wouldn't Mike Vrabel make perfect sense for the Chicago Bears?
100%.
Like, and I'm not talking about because of the ability to help Justin Fields. I'm just talking about personality-wise, mentality, defensive coach, hard-nosed. Like, he just feels like he fits the personality of the Bears. I honestly thought he was going to end up with the Eagles. I thought Vrabel was going to be replacing Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia. But that didn't happen. Still could, I guess, but it didn't for this year. But I just feel like, why Chicago? Like, would you want a defensive coach? Okay, but is Eberflus better than Mike Vrabel? Like,
right.
no matter what, I just feel like they would have been way better off with a Mike Vrabel. But
that's another conspiracy theory I have, is that they looked at all the coaches that were going to be available next year and thought, all right, we can let him hang on one more year. If he does something great, if he doesn't, look at the coaching candidates we're going to have next year. And then we're probably still picking high in the draft. So we're going to be even more attractive to them, especially if, we get a quarterback that comes in or Fields lives up to that potential and not just the last 6-7 games of the year potential, but, shows it all throughout. So there could be a lot to that too. Like, hey, we're not going to get any of these big guys that are out there right now. Bring them back and, let's shoot for next year. I mean, what else would make sense? Because otherwise, when you have names like that are out there, like, we'll take Mike Vrabel over Matt Eberflus.
Right.
We'll take Bill Belichick over, Eberflus at this point. Pete Carroll. I don't know. Imagine Pete Carroll in Chicago.
Yeah. Be a great fit. Anything
100%.
would be a better fit. I mean, anything's better than Matt Eberflus. And it's not like I hate Matt Eberflus or something like that.
No.
But it's just look at the pedigree of the guys that we're talking about here. It's not close. So, there's a better way, but not the way they decided to do it. So, about that. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Everybody, look, Super Bowl's coming, baby. Enjoy it. Hope your bets hit. I would probably, I don't know on this one, man. I feel like I might hit the under on this game. Might hit the under. I don't remember what the line is on it.
It looks like the line as of right now this is according to ESPN, that the over-under is 47.5.
47.5. Boy, okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe I would go over on that. That feels low. I was thinking it was 50 or higher. So
47.5. And right now, the San Francisco 49ers are 1.5 point favorites.
Mm-hmm.
So you see where a lot of bets are pulling in on. So
that's right.
That could obviously come Thursday, Friday, that line probably will have already changed again.
Yes,
so
it does. That's what happens.
Oh, you know what? Did you see the Mattress Mac thing? I know we're on the sports show here. Did you?
I did.
Did I have it?
Do I have that? Because I totally forgot.
I spazzed on that, man. And I was just thinking about it.
Shoot, did I not put it on this list or did I put it on another list? I'm looking right now. I know I have it. I got to figure out where I put it. Yes. Okay. I got it.
You have it? All right.
I do.
I mean, we could save it for the other show, but this.
I'll play it on both because it's worth playing. It's worth playing here. This is unbelievable. Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know, and I think most people would know, but Mattress Mac is a guy in Houston. He owns a furniture store. This dude, older guy, man. I mean, he'll put $1 million bets on these big games. He's at all the major sporting events and stuff, and he does not mind betting big. And so old Mattress Mac decided that he had some things to say, and he said them in a fascinating way. So let's have a look at Mattress Mac and what he has to say.
Now then, did you get chopped and screwed by a competitor who said they were going to hook it up, then went ghost when it was time for your delivery? Here at Gallery Furniture, we stay knocking on doors like MC and Little Kiki. And when you shop from Gallery Furniture, in 4 hours or less, our delivery team is going to show up and show out because we don't do it for the clout. This is what Gallery Furniture and we are all about. We can't leave you riding dirty on that hand-me-down sofa. We need you to shine so clean with that new from Gallery Furniture. Text me, Mattress Mac, your triple OG partner from the north side at 281-844-1963. I'm going to plug you in with $600 off your purchase of $2,000 or more because a real hustler like you got to be living lavish. And if your credit is all up, I run it like Chameleonaire and Slim Thugger. Pull up to any Gallery Furniture location. We're going to fight to get you financing like when I fought Muhammad Ali many years ago, the greatest of all time. Let's get it.
There you have it.
The first comment on this said, day 4 of Black History Month.
It's so good. I mean, who had this idea? Now, Mattress Mac's down for anything. He doesn't care.
Oh, sure. He don't
But who
care.
had this idea that's like, let's stick him here in a puffer jacket, put a bandana around. Oh, yeah, I should say this for anyone listening to the podcast who doesn't have the video on YouTube to be able to see this. They put this man, first of all, he's mixing Jolly Ranchers into a styrofoam cup with Sprite with a purple puffer jacket and a purple bandana tied around his head. And they got him back here, and he's just like talking right into the camera, man. Like just laying it out there, just like Slim Thugger. And so it is unbelievable. I don't know who had the idea. I'd love to know how many takes. I want to see the outtakes of the Mattress Mac commercial.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
So, come on, man.
That dude knows how to market. He knows how to market himself.
He put this out during Black History Month. I mean, unbelievable. Like
celebration.
Nobody was like, yeah, Mac, maybe we just hold this until like spring or something.
He's like, no, I got a whole other thing for Easter.
Yeah.
I got to work in my Chameleonaire reference now before the Super Bowl.
Before Chameleonaire goes out of style.
I mean, yeah, it's gutsy move, but Mattress Mac don't care.
No, he don't care. He'll put $1 million bet on it that you'll love it.
That's right. That's right. He doesn't care if he wins or loses.
No,
he's making money either way. He prints money. Crazy. Yeah, so there you go. That's a little on the Daily Show back in the day when it was decent, they had your moment of zen. So that's your moment of zen right there, is watching Mattress Mac.
That's it. That's fantastic. Really embarrassing. And yeah, day 4 of Black History Month. This man put this out.
There's your reparations.
Yeah.
Anyone this is what it's been reduced
That's
to.
It. $600 off 2,000.
Not going to beat that. You're not going to beat it.
No.
Don't bother trying.
You're not getting money from Congress. You're going to get savings from Mattress Mac.
Oh, well, there you go, man. All right. Well, we're going to close it out. Good one as always. Enjoy the Super Bowl. And again, $600 off 2,000. Gallery Furniture. Go see Mattress Mac. He's going to hook you up if you got chopped and screwed by a competitor.
That's it. Tell him we sent you.
That's right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. All right. Good night.